All right, folks, welcome back to this week's episode of Firepunk Fridays. This week we're going to be joined by Kyle, and it's going to be the first week of doing a remote connection. So if there's some hiccups, excuse the, I guess, production flaws or whatever, but I think we've got a good episode lined up for you. And without further ado, here is Kyle Fischer.
Definitely a little bit different setup today. I'm used to talking to guys here in the shop with me, and we got set up to do a remote call here. So we'll see how good I am at this or how not good I am. But yeah, so first off, we're having a beauty contest. Me and Kyle are sitting here seeing who can look the best. But how you doing, Kyle?
I'm doing good. I think you win in the contest, though, buddy.
I don't know about that, but yeah. No, you've been all over the place. I feel like I've been running a lot, but keeping tabs on you, I think my schedule's pretty light compared to yours. So tell me a little bit about your last couple of weeks and where you're going here in the near future.
It's been quite a run, man. First of all, thanks for having me, dude. This is really cool. I love that you guys are doing these Facebook or Firepunk Friday things. So I'm honored to be part of it. Thanks for having
it's
me.
good. It's good to have you. So I was going to have you last week, and then you got busy and planes got delayed. And come to find out, so Rick Haynes at UCC was yelling at me for missing some Firepunk Fridays. So, but we're off the hook on that because Rick wasn't working last Friday anyhow, so he didn't need any distractions. So it worked out.
Just to call you out.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so it was a great week for me to be a slacker and not get anything done. But
well, I actually noticed on one of your recent ones, you'd mentioned right at the beginning, you're like, man, these come up quick, and I think about having content and stuff, and I had a good laugh at it because forever we had Hot Shot Secret live on Fridays, and we actually have a full-blown marketing department and everything. You guys are a transmission shop, and I was like, yeah, it ain't easy.
Yeah, no, it definitely it takes a lot to come up with fresh ideas, and I think sometimes I feel like maybe sometimes I don't want to repeat myself on some certain stuff, but I do think that there are topics that it doesn't hurt to beat a dead horse sometimes. Like we've had so much stuff that happened at UCC and different stuff like that I think let's hash it out, for crying out loud.
Some of it's worth beating the horse a little bit. So,
yeah.
but to answer your question, it's just been a really busy run here. I guess right before UCC, I actually was up at the Great Lakes Big Rig Challenge. Man, that thing is sweet.
I'm jealous.
The first year we've ever gone up there. I've been looking at it for a while. Obviously, big rigs is a big part of our business at Hot Shots, so it's always been like kind of on my radar. And I'll give a shout out to Dan Scheid at PRI this year. He brought the guy who runs it. I believe his name's Mike, if I'm remembering right. He brought him over to my booth, and he's like, Kyle, you got to check out this event. I was like, I've heard of it. And, and when Dan Scheid speaks, you listen, right? So I said, I think we're going this year, and had no idea what to expect. It's way up there. It's way up in the Upper Peninsula. But it was a great trip. I went up with Diesel Don, and we stopped and saw Derek on the way. And then we stopped and saw Tony at Dirty Hooker. So we kind of made a little journey out of it. Did not know what to expect, but I'm telling you, I'm going back to that event every year. It is so cool to see these rigs. I think they're pulling 120,000 pound loads uphill, and they're pulling their wheels.
It's like double whatever back-to-back trailers stacked full of lumber, right? I mean, it's insane.
It's crazy, dude.
No,
and these people love it.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure. I mean, they're diehards at that level, but I've seen the videos of that, for years now on YouTube and stuff, and definitely something on my bucket list that I want to go to. So maybe next year I'll have to, like, I don't know, be a Hot Shot salesman or something and make it happen.
Deal. So the challenge is, I guess it is every Memorial Day. So it really hits right with our UCC usually time of year.
Yeah, I mean, it's right in the crazy time of year for everyone. So would you say, like, were the loaded races the best, or like was the bobtail stuff cool too? Or
it was all cool, and I didn't know they actually did even down to regular trucks. They had your regular street trucks there running too, so they had quite a different uh, range of them. I'll tell you, I still love the loaded trucks the best to watch.
Mhm.
And, just as a drag racing fan, period, it's a completely different type of drag racing.
Yeah.
It's slow.
Mhm.
They're not, they're not getting up that fast, that much weight. But
Right.
one thing that I kind of caught on to that was really kind of fun to watch at the beginning was uh, when they'd come off the line, the guy who looked like he had a good launch and came off the line pretty well
Mhm.
didn't always win. And it was, you know, they still would spin their wheels and everything with all that load. But
Mhm.
I really think it had to do where they were coming at with their turbos and like the power band when they hit that hill.
Mhm.
Because sometimes the guy that was behind, as
Okay.
soon as they hit that hill, if that guy wasn't in the right part of his gear or something,
Uh-huh.
that hill just is the
Just killed him.
equalizer. It'll just stop you on the hill, and here comes
Yeah.
the guy blowing right by. And
Yeah.
so yeah, it was
Yeah.
awesome to watch, man. And we were right at the starting line was where they put our vendor booth, and I was like, man, I couldn't ask for a better spot than this. But
Mhm.
I will say those guys really, really love their black smoke,
Yeah.
and
Right.
we every 30 to 60 seconds, our booth would be smoked out. I've got an inch of soot on everything.
Oh man, that sounds kind of miserable.
But it was
yeah.
cool. We're definitely heading back. I don't
Yeah.
care if it's the weekend before UCC every year, which made it
Right.
tough.
Yeah.
Getting back, I had one day back and headed straight to Indy.
Yeah.
But I highly recommend it for anybody
Right.
who's never been there before.
Yeah. No, I mean, the smoke is definitely, it's one of those things I've learned. Obviously we try to not have smoke because that's
Right.
a sign of, unburnt fuel. And it's very prevalent in the sled pulling world because they're air limited, and with mechanical stuff, it's about the only way of doing it. But I see the side of, like, there's a lot of people that the smoke is part of the show for them.
Right.
So from that side of it, it's kind of tough to see some of that go away. But man, I did watch that and think, like, man, they could use some common rail technology. Like, I really think that would be something. And I know S&S had that truck that they worked on over winter. I believe that truck was up there. I saw some
Yep.
video clips of it, and
Yeah, S&S
they
is
do
up there
pretty
too.
good.
It
Yeah.
was good to see those guys there.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely a really cool event that I'll have to check out at some point. So yeah, and then you had UCC, and you just came back from Texas, and now you're what? Where are you off to this
Yeah,
weekend?
UCC, and of course UCC was crazy. I mean, that was a wild one, and then that ran right into Texas Truck Jam, which I just got back from, and I'm loading up now to head to Tennessee for Epling's event, the
Okay.
Smoking in the Smokies. That's where we're heading this weekend.
Okay.
So looking forward to that, and then back into that, go straight down to Florida. We're doing another episode. I know a lot of people know we're on Truck U a lot.
Mhm.
We've had the S10 on Truck U before, and I believe the first truck we ever put on Truck U was actually Levon back in the Pro Street Truck years
Okay.
ago.
Yep.
So I guess you'll find out soon enough. But we're heading down there with Justin Ziegler,
Okay.
and it just hit me like yesterday. That truck's been on Truck U before, so
it's the same
going to
truck.
be
Yep.
interesting to have
Yeah.
have its return back to
Right.
Truck U. So
Definitely a lot of parts have changed on that truck since then.
yeah,
So
a little different.
yep. Oh, very good. Yep. So busy, crazy time. Want to get into talking about oil a bit before we get on with talking, I guess, fun event stuff. I mean, oil stuff can be fun to talk about too, just not quite as fun, huh?
We nerd out on oil here, man. We love it. You know that.
Yeah, well, I'll just jump into it right away here. So some of the stuff I know we've talked about at the racetrack some before. Let's start talking about fuels and fuel lubricity and race fuels and stuff.
Yeah.
I know that kind of seems to be a pretty big topic when we're at the racetrack, like what to look for, what are good fuels, what are bad fuels. Yeah. I know personally we've run quite a bit of the syn diesel, and a
Right.
lot of that is mostly because of the lubricity of it.
Mhm.
You guys have recommended that to us from the standpoint of lubricity. I know that we do have some questions of some things we'd like to do dyno tuning wise to see where it's at power wise compared to some of the other stuff. But talk to me a little bit what you found with some of the different fuels that are out there based on lubricity.
They're all dry.
They're all dry.
It's a matter of how dry is it, so even our daily drivers from the pump, ultra low sulfur diesel is dry. So we've seen that now compounded with the CP4 problem. So it's finally got to the point where people are actually kind of listening. I love the fact that we've got our diesel extreme and ED heat products that are all in ones, but our LX4 product we put out there, which is just the lubricity, and it's already in the EDT. But we sell the heck out of it. And all the people I talk to that use it, I'm always like, why don't you use the EDT? It's got all this other stuff in it. But, I don't believe in additives, so it's really a lot of those people are like, I don't need any additives. I don't believe in additives, but I need some lubricity for my fuel. And I'm like, okay, that's an additive,
Yeah.
So I guess from our world, one good thing is that it's kind of opened people's minds to the need to use an additive for a certain purpose. And hopefully we can help educate them through that. But man, this race fuel is bad. I mean, it is dry as can get. And, and I know a lot of people are running the VP Torx DX. It's a very common fuel, and we've done a lot of testing on that. And we see wear scars, 590, 600, 610, like just really, really dry.
What's an acceptable range on wear scar?
I think the American engine manufacturer is at a 490.
Okay.
I'm trying to remember off the top of my head right now. I think it's a 490. And again, a wear scar test is just simply, it's a measure of lubricity in the fuel. So what they do is they take like a metal steel blank and they treat it with a lubricant, and then a metal pin rubs and gouges a hole in the plate, and then you measure how big is the gouge it took out. The better your lubricant, the smaller the gouge is going to be. So the amount of metal that gets gouged out is what they're measuring, and it's in microns. So how big of a hole? Well, if you lubricate with Torx DX, it's going to take a big hole, 600 and plus microns, so adding, that's something unique about our fuel systems. There's nothing in there to lubricate your very expensive components, from your pumps to your injectors. I mean, everything except the fuel itself.
Right.
So, but where it gets tricky is with the race fuel, because we're trying to make power there, and we're really trying to get all the energy that we can out of that fuel. And lubricity and cetane, where we're getting the power, just don't like each other, so you can't just crank up the cetane, you lose the lubricity. You try to add a lot of lubricity on it and you start to lose the cetane power. So it's been a challenge for the industry to come up with a really powerful diesel fuel that still protects the system. Now we got some stuff, we've been working on some, a race fuel for a couple of years now. And a lot of the guys out there, a lot of our sponsor drivers, they're using it. A lot of them love it. We've seen a lot of different types of gains with it. What's unique about ours is that it doesn't impact cetane. We're able to keep the cetane level up and get lubricity up. So that's kind of what our lab's been shooting for. Is really at the end of the day, we're always trying to protect the system. So.
And your race fuel is in the form of an additive package, correct? Like you would still go buy number 2 diesel and mix it with that.
Right now it's in a blend. Just a race fuel blend. So you would be adding it to your own fuel. When we go to market with it, I don't know where we're going to be. We might go down the road of actually going full 5-gallon pails of fully blended. We'd like to. It's, we do a lot of stuff here: oils, additives, fuel stuff, coolants, you name it. But full blown fuel is a whole different ballgame. I mean, there's so much regulation, and just when it comes to storage and bottling, we don't know if we want to make that leap just for race fuel.
Right.
So right now it's in just as a mix. 1 quart treats like 4 gallons now. But the challenge is the base fuel. You're only as good as the base fuel you start with. So what we really want is a real consistent source of high cetane unadditized fuel, and it's just tough to find. And that's why we recommend to you guys running the Sin Diesel and the S10. And the main reason for that is that you guys have all the power you need. You don't need, I don't think you guys have ever put all the power down, have you?
No, I would say probably not. We may
So
have gotten
it's
really
like
close at the very end of the track a few times, but for the
yeah,
most part,
but
no.
you're not searching for power.
No,
It's
no, we're
more
not.
important for you guys to have very consistent tuning and a fuel that you can consistently rely on. So what's really going to put our race fuel over the edge is when we secure a line of really consistent unadditized fuel, and that way we can provide a consistent product.
Yeah.
So that's just kind of the challenge right now.
So I did hear something interesting in regards to Sin Diesel recently. I had somebody tell me they were talking to, I believe it was Zach Hamilton, had done a good bit of testing on some different fuels. And he had actually, no, it was Ziegler that told me, because Zach had come up to Ziegler and said, "Hey, you're running Sin
You talk
Diesel,
about
aren't you?"
nitrous backfires.
Yeah, I am. So it seems like you've heard the story.
I may have.
So he just said that from his experience, that something with the way the Sin Diesel burns, that we're getting more nitrous backfires because of the Sin Diesel. So I would be really curious to talk to him and see kind of what some of his actual findings are in that. So that kind of piqued my interest a little bit, and because I really hate nitrous backfires.
Mine too. I heard the same thing, and I already kind of poked R&D about it. We're going to look into it as well. I mean, heck, the S10's had a couple of big ones, and
I mean,
usually it was when it was cold. Didn't we always kind of eliminate it down to it just doesn't like the cold weather?
I mean, that's when you fight it the most, yes, but any time that your weather conditions change, you just really have to be on top of it and make sure that you don't pop it during spool up and stuff. But I mean, you just look at, we don't make it through a race weekend without somebody having some kind of a nitrous backfire amongst all the vehicles that are there. So that's definitely, if we can change a fuel and make those nitrous backfires considerably less, then that's something I'm going to look into, because piston rings really hate that. It's definitely cost us a few dollars because of nitrous backfires. So things to keep learning, I guess. And we'll just have
that's something we're really looking into as well too, because we do like the consistency of the Sin Diesel. We like the cetane of the Torx DX. Trying to balance all these out while keeping lubricity up is the key.
Yeah.
Which, side note, breaking news, get an announcement for you. Lubricity race fuel. We finally have our top lube coming out. So we are literally, I saw the final packaging. So it should be done here pretty soon. Literally all we have left is color and smell. I get to finally pick a scent for a race fuel. But we've had such a good experience bringing lubricity up in these fuels, and I've got a lot of sponsored guys outside of the diesel world too. So we've got alcohol guys, E85, race gasoline, 112, 110, all that stuff. So it's still different in the rest of those things. They need lubricity as well.
For all the diesel guys, why don't you tell everybody what top lube is?
Top lube is literally the same thing that we're doing with currently using LX4 in like the Torx DX. It's just a lubricity additive. We're bringing lubricity up in race fuel, because race fuel is dry. Just like we talked about with the diesel, it's no different.
Okay.
It gets really bad in alcohol. So these alcohol cars, I mean, it is terrible. So all it is a race fuel lubricant, to put it in the best terms. Is now they call it top lubes because it's also it does a very good job as being an upper cylinder lubricant. So as we know, the engine oil on the bottom side is assisting that piston sweep down, if you will, but getting some lubrication on the top side, we're doing it for protection purposes. But I've always tell you, and we don't invent horsepower, we just free the engine up to make it. So it's really doing the same thing. Lubing the top side of the cylinder just allows more efficiency of that piston ring, and you make more power and protect the engine.
Yep. Very good. Yeah, it's always, you guys always seem to have something new brewing over there. So like Kevin and the guys.
And I'm actually happy because we finally are getting a little love on this racing stuff. So As people, you guys know, because we work so closely with you. Heck, you guys are our guinea pigs half the time. So that's why I love the Firepunk crowd so much.
Uh,
But our racing products do not make a lot of money for us. They
Right.
are very, very expensive. We have very little margin on them, but it's really a place where we test stuff, really put our formulas out there and take products to the extreme limit and really push them to the limits. That data, that research that we get out of that falls down into our everyday driver type of additives that people are buying off the shelf. So it's really a proving grounds for us. And when we put a lot of these racing oils out there, we're like, some people might want to buy it. It's expensive stuff. It's got the damn best lubricants you can buy, because we know that because it's the most expensive ingredients you can get as well.
Right.
But it's just not a moneymaker for us. And so because of that, as a big company trying to, make money and put more retail products out there that pay our bills and stuff, the racing line is more of an R&D playground than it is a revenue source. But I'm excited though. I finally got some attention here. I got a top lube coming. We're working on an assembly lube because we're working with a lot of engine builders now, and they're like, hey, we love this racing oil. We're seeing how well it's protecting bearings and everything, but do you guys have a top lube? Do you have a assembly lube? I got a braking oil they just finished, which I've been waiting on forever. So that's kind of the trio I've been wanting to help the engine builders that are working with us, is the assembly lube and the braking oil to match with our adrenaline racing oil. So I'm happy that stuff's coming out here real soon.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, we see the same thing here with, the racing top horsepower stuff doesn't necessarily directly, I mean, that's not your money maker, but there's so much stuff that trickles down from that, it really affects the everyday driver and stuff and your everyday products. So, talk a little bit about, you talked about how expensive some of your race stuff is. So I'm Joe Blow out there, and oil is oil to me, and synthetic is synthetic. So why don't you tell me how wrong that theory is? Talk a little bit about like a Group 4 synthetic versus any bottle of oil that might have the synthetic tag on it.
Well, first of all, I got a quiz for you. What is the Group 4 called?
A Group 4 PAO?
Yeah, what's PAO stand for?
I did poly, some weird, can't say it. Polyethylene or something weird.
Not too bad. I'll give you poly. All right, so let's talk groups of oil. I'll give you the nutshell kind of explanation that kind of leads to where these racing oils came from. When we're talking about any type of engine oil, it all starts with dinosaur oil coming out of the ground. So it all starts there, and it's how much and what we do to it to get it to different forms of base oil. So Group 1s are just pretty much your black goop out of the earth. There's not much to do with it. Waste oil burning type of stuff. That oil base gets hydrocracked, and what we're trying to do is streamline that carbon chain of the oil so that it doesn't break so easily. When the carbon chain breaks in an oil, that's called shearing. That's when your 15W40 oil, your 40 weight oil, becomes a 35 weight oil, becomes a 30 weight oil over miles on the engine, and you have to change your oil. Fell out of grade. It's no longer the proper viscosity and thickness to protect the engine. That's what we look for in a base oil. It's really how long of interval do you want to go? How long is it going to hold up before falling out of grade? Additive package is a whole different ballgame. Additive package is how we're protecting the engine and providing different aspects to the oil, but it all starts with that base oil. So your Group 2 is your conventional. That means it's gone through a hydrocracking process, and we've streamlined the carbon chain a little bit. That's your 1995 Midas oil change, kind of quick lube, cheaper oil, if you will. It's not that highly refined. So I think you're the one who always loves my analogy of, if you were trying to slide on a surfboard across the floor here and slide on that carbon chain, well, conventional oils like beach balls, basketballs, golf balls, baseballs, it's all these different ridges. So it's real easy to kind of catch an edge and break that carbon chain. And that's why conventional oil, you can only go so many miles and then you got to change it. Well, then you step up to a Group 3 oil. A Group 3 oil is what the world calls synthetic, with my bunny ears and everything. And what that is, it's the exact same oil. It's the same base oil. It just goes back through that hydrocracking process again, maybe multiple times. It's a more highly refined oil. Now, instead of having the beach balls and basketballs and baseballs, we might be down to softballs and baseballs. So it's a pretty consistent plane that we are now sliding across the floor a lot easier. We're not catching an edge as much. So the oil strength, the viscosity is holding up better. That's why you can go twice as long, 3 times as long in an oil change with a synthetic oil over conventional oil, just because that carbon chain is much more stronger. It avoids shearing a lot easier. So now the bad boy stuff is when we get into the group 4 stuff. And to give you the full background, in the 90s, we all moved that direction. And group 4 PAOs, polyalpha olefins.
I was kind of close.
just get Josh Scruggs to come up here. I love watching Josh Scruggs try to say that. It's like my favorite thing in the world. So group 4s came out in the 90s, and literally the whole industry went that way. And they're great. The difference between a group 4 PAO is it's actually a true synthetic. Now, it still comes from that goop from the earth. But the difference is, instead of hydrocracking it and slimming down that carbon chain line, we're basically breaking the puzzle apart down to all of its core organic elements and pieces, and then rebuilding the carbon chain. That's why it's synthetic. It's man-made and synthesized exactly how we want it. It still comes from organic materials. It's all the same stuff where it started. But instead of trimming the tree down to make it streamlined, we just say we're starting over. We break it all the way down to its elements and we build it up. And then what that carbon chain then looks like is literally replicated identical. Now we've got BBs across the floor rather than beach balls and basketballs. It's all pure 100% identical size BBs, and you can just slide right over that stuff, and you are not going to catch an edge on anything. And therefore, that carbon chain cannot break. Like, it literally will not break. So your 40 weight is going to be a 40 weight no matter what you do to it. And that's because we have full control of the carbon chain to resist shearing. Now, here's where it gets into the racing world. We've had that Group 4 oil. Chris has been selling it as Blue Diamond oil for 20 years. And it's a very, very unique oil, but he really had it out there for one purpose. So I forgot to give you the background. In the 90s, when they all came out, when all the PAOs came out, I need to look this up. I forget who it was. I believe it was Valvoline, one of the big companies, put out a Group 3 and called it a synthetic. This went all the way to the Federal Trade Commission. Federal Trade Commission said, we're not getting into the oil world. You guys call that crap whatever you want to call it. And literally that day, everybody moved to Group 3s. So to this day,
because it was a money thing.
Yeah. So everything you see on the shelf that says synthetic is a Group 3. None of those are Group 4s. So they're just more refined conventional oil. There's nothing really synthetic about them. It's just a term that's used. There's even brands out there that call themselves, first in synthetics and all this stuff, and they don't even make a synthetic oil. I find kind of funny, but so nowadays there are a couple companies out there that do use some PAO in their base oil, which is really good because it strengthens that resistance to shearing. But what nobody does is what we do, uses 100% pure PAO. Like, the entire base oil is 100% pure PAO. The purpose of that was originally for over-the-road truckers that were looking to go long intervals. These big rigs beat up on this oil just like a race car does in the 8th mile pass. These guys are doing over 10, 20, 30,000 miles. So we just had our first truck hit 200,000 miles on the oil. We've had a bunch do 100,000, but we finally had one that just hit 200,000, and people are like, that's bull crap. There's no way. We do it every day. It's not that easy. It's not like you just throw this oil in and you can go 200,000 miles and forget about it. We got to, there's 3 things to keep the oil running in a vehicle. You got to keep it in grade. Well, we solved that problem with the pure PAO. Stays in grade. Don't have to worry about it. We take that element off the table. You got to keep it clean. So these guys are running big bypass filters and really filtering the oil down to 2 microns and changing those filters regularly. So they're keeping this really good oil clean. And then number 3, you got to keep the detergent package up and the base levels of the oil up, because especially in these diesels, they're always combating acid. So as the acid builds up, you need base and the oil to combat it. Well, we have a unique product called TBN Booster that's basically all that good stuff out of the oil in a bottle. And so these big trucks are just doing an oil analysis every 20,000 miles or so, checking the TBN level, spiking that back up. Yep, it's still clean. Yep, it's still in grade because it's PAO. We send them on their way another 20,000 miles. They'll go 100, 150, 200. And that's where we live. That's where Chris was in that world for so long.
Right.
You guys dragged us into the racing world. And at first we were just running our FR3 with you guys. You guys did some testing on our FR3 and adding that to oil, which really improves any oil that you have. And then you challenged us to make some racing oil. Well, the first thing we did was, before we even get to an additive package, what base oil are we going to use? Well, we just used that same technology. We said, well, heck, if these over-the-road truckers are beating up on their oil over long intervals and shearing the oil out of the grade, the racers are doing the same thing. They just are doing it with 3,000 horsepower in a matter of seconds in an eighth mile, So obviously the no-brainer for us was we're starting with a 100% pure Group 4 PAO base oil. And our whole adrenaline line of racing oils, from the engine to the trans to the gear oil, all are pure PAOs, because we literally just take that element off the table. So any shearing problem people have with other race oils, they only get so many passes before it starts to fall out of grade. It's non-existent with our oils. Like, they will not fall out of grade. So we just kind of eliminate that out of the top. And that was the birth of the racing oil, was over the road truck technology, going long intervals. Now we have shear resistant racing oil for race cars.
Nice. Yep. That's pretty cool. I mean, do you know the capacity of an oil system on a big rig truck? I don't know that offhand, but I know it's pretty big. And when they can go those kind of miles without having to replace oil all the time, I'm sure it's a pretty big.
44 quarts or so are on some of these. Yeah. And even some of the bypass filters we put on them add 12 to 16 quarts. We've got a big Harvard unit on the Firepunk bus, don't we?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, that's a big bypass. I think that adds 12 extra quarts to the system too.
Right.
So, I mean, the more oil, the better, for an engine. And when you already have 44 quarts in there, and you can make it a 56 quart engine, all the better. So,
yeah.
I
mean, it definitely. Yeah, it's pretty cool how they can go 200,000 miles on the same oil. I wanted to bring that up because, I mean, that was something that was a whole eye opener to me, as not all synthetic is the same.
That's right.
So it's just one of those things where they can get by with labeling it that way. And so they do.
But there's also some reasoning behind it too, that maybe you don't know. Maybe, I don't know if I've taken you down this far down the road. It becomes very difficult to additize the better the base oil is. So we talked about the carbon chain being all bushy and crazy on a conventional oil. I think of it as a Christmas tree. It's all kind of got these crazy limbs. Well, breaking off those limbs shear the oil. That's bad news. But the good news to a conventional Group 2 is that there's all these limbs to hang ornaments on or additives. So we can load conventional oil with additives. It just, it sucks them all up. So it's very easy to put a really good additive package on a poor base oil. Whereas once you start getting it streamlined into a Group 3 synthetic, there's less areas to tuck the additives in. It's harder. They don't retain the additives as well. They don't stay in solution as well. And then certainly when you get to a Group 4 PAO and you've got this straight chain of BBs, it's great for resisting shearing and braking, but it's darn near impossible to get it to hold any additives.
Right. Well, I know you've talked to me about that before in regards to the FR3. Like you said, there's some other lubricity additives out there that can match the lubricity, but what they can't do is they can't keep it suspended in the oil where it eventually settles out.
Yeah, that's a big problem with the carbon nanotechnology. And that's where we've made all our gains. We figured that out. Little old us here in Ohio, and all the big boys really want that technology from us, but Chris won't give it up. He's like, no, we're keeping that one. And that's really, and kudos to some of these brands out there. I mean, I'll give Schaefer's a shout out. They make a really good oil. We test everything. And one unique thing about the Schaefer's oil that we always find is they have a little bit of PAO in there. So they're one of the only companies we know that use some PAO Group 4. but they just put a very tiny bit in to strengthen the shearing of it. But they can't put too much in because it won't hold additives then. We've actually figured out not only just to put a lot in, we can do it with pure PAO and get it to hold additives. So that's kind of that's what's unique about the lubricant world is we can't hide anything. Guys can't hide anything. We put it out there on our tech data sheets, our safety data sheets. We legally have to. So we can show people our recipe, but they don't know how to cook it, if that makes sense. It's like, it's here's all the ingredients, here's what we're putting together, but good luck trying to get it to hold.
Right.
And that's where our feather and our cap is, if you will.
Yeah. No, that's cool. So next question is how much time do we have? Because I'm seeing the time tick very rapidly.
Dude, I got all day, man.
Okay.
I got all day for you.
I didn't
unload the trailer today, and it's 100 degrees. And I just left Texas. Dude, when I touched down in Texas,
so
it's at 109 degrees. So
that's gross.
So my 99 degree day, I'm happy being in AC. So you got me as long as you want, man.
So like the longer we sit here and talk, the longer somebody else might load your trailer, or is it not work quite like that?
That's the plan. I'll send a couple texts off real quick.
Anyhow, well, you mentioned Chris a little bit and some of his wizardry. I figured it might be interesting to share with people a little bit, kind of some of what LSI is and what all you guys get into, and that the tire machine. I would like to hear a little bit about that, I guess.
Well,
we don't need to
background.
We don't need to get crazy with the tire machine, but still pretty interesting.
I'll touch on it. Our parent company is Lubrication Specialties Incorporated, LSI. Chris has had that company. We just celebrated our 25th anniversary. So LSI has been around for a while. And Chris is a perfect example of like the American dream. Like he started off as a one-man show, wife, 6 kids, living here in Mount Gilead, Ohio. And he's a tribologist. He's an oil nerd. That's what he does. He knows his oils and lubricants and greases. And at the time he was working just for big industry stuff, finding issues in plants that he could develop a grease for to help them extend bearings a year. And he's a one-man show. They're going, investigate it, formulate some for him and sell it to him and move on. And what got him into the automotive side of things was the Ford 6-liter, the 6.0, the Huey injector. And when Ford started having problems with those, they put the word out to the tribology community and said, hey, we got this problem that we need to fix with a lubricant somehow. Who can figure it out? Chris is that guy. And took him 2 years to develop and submit it to Ford and International, and they tested it and they found his formula to be the best. And it fixed 9 out of 10 gummed up Huey injectors. So Chris thought he had made it. He's like, man, I'm gonna be a millionaire. I can't wait to tell the wife, like all this stuff. And literally through that process, they stopped manufacturing those engines and they moved on, and he was stuck with a couple of bottles of really good stuff.
They were like, this is no longer our problem. We're on to the next one.
Like, yep. See ya. And they fixed it by bringing a new engine out. So Chris was left high and dry, and he said, I've got a great product. There's millions of these 6-liters out there. I'm going to take it to market. And to give him credit, that dude would hustle, fuel pumps, especially right here in Ohio, up 71, like the next exit down. He was famous for hanging out at the pilot. I think it's the pilot down here. And he would just show up at a pump when a guy's filling up, like, hey man, check out my stiction eliminator.
You need to try this.
Yeah. It was just hand-to-hand combat, and he hustled and hustled and hustled. And the turning point for the company was literally like he was about to fold it in. Like he was out of money. The product had not really taken off on a national level like he wanted it to. And he was about to fold it all in, and he got a call from, believe this is some irony, from one of our radio advertiser. He was advertising on a overnight trucking show out of Cincinnati, the Truckin' Bozo at the time, which is Steve Summers now took it over from his father. And he said, and they called him to up his advertising. And he's like, no, forget upping it. I got to pull it. I'm about to. And he said, can I come down and get on the air? I love to try to just one last hurrah. And they're just like, that really only goes to our big dollar sponsors and stuff. And he begged and begged. And they said, Foul, come on down. We'll give you 5 minutes. Long story short, he got on the air, started taking calls from truckers who don't usually have an opportunity to speak to a tribologist and ask them trucking, oil, diesel related stuff. And next thing you know, he was on for all 5 hours. Phones were lit up the whole time.
Wow.
And his energy's all up. And it's like, as he's closing down his company. And so now it's 5 a.m. because it's an overnight show, midnight to 5 a.m. He's driving back up to Mount Gilead from Cincinnati, calls his wife, and Tammy's like, dude, we got like 300 orders here. He's like, what?
Oh, wow.
And literally at this time, he was working out of a pole barn in his backyard, like hand mixing drums, hand bottling, hand labeling. He had something like 22 bottles of in stock and inventory and had like 300 orders. I mean, so he called cousins, nephews, nieces. They're all bottling stuff and literally like never turned around after that. After
That's
that,
awesome.
it was the rest is history. And then we just continued to add products based on problem solving kind of ideas. Well, as this took off, also, he still kept some other things, some other irons in the fire. One of them, like you mentioned, is under our company name, Microwave Renewable Technologies. The sexier name for it, the in-house name is Tire Hog. And that name is actually stuck now. And so, yeah, that's been like a 12-year-old dream that they first started. The idea was to solve the world's problem of used tires. Nobody's figured it out. I saw Shell just gave up and folded their whole project that they had been working 10 years on and had over $6 billion invested and just walked away from it. It's a tough problem. We can't do anything with used tires. Like there's nothing to do with them. So they pile up, which I tell everybody, do a Google search for Tire Mountain. You'll see some crazy stuff. Like in the Middle East, they dry rot tires so fast out there. They just take them out to the desert and they throw them in these mountains of tires. And they're so large, you can see them from space. They're enormous and they got nothing to do with them. So Chris had this theory on how to, take care of these, how to recycle these tires, if you will. And it just started as scaled in a lab to a little bit larger. Fast forward to 2020 is when he put the big investment in, and we had a full prototype built, which is now about 100 yards from me, right out back of LSI here. It's a full trailer size rig. There will be a second one when it's done that is the command center. This is a mobile unit that can go anywhere in the world, anywhere a truck can drive. You feed it tires. That's why it's a tire hog. It snarfs them all up, chips them all up. It hits a giant microwave that then, for lack of a better term, cooks the tires into 3 products: oil, fuel, and carbon black. And the oil and the fuel run the unit, so it's self-sustaining. You can take it in the desert and it will run itself. And the carbon black is a commodity that we use for all sorts of things, including tires. That's what they make tires with. And one unique little side caveat, I don't know if I told you about, that's kind of a new opportunity, is that they're finding that these new EVs, there's a lot of research going into the batteries, these electric vehicles, and they're finding that carbon black is like maybe the future for it. Like it's got the most potential for energy storage and all this stuff. But the problem is they're like, where can we get all this carbon black? Chris is like,
hey, I might know a guy.
Tires, I can make carbon black. So
yeah,
it's
that's
weird
cool
how these worlds collide. And so that's where it's at. It's in, Kevin's been working on it. I just saw them produce their first oil and fuel just, I think, a couple months ago. So the prototype's working and we'll see where it goes from here.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Like I remember when you first mentioned that to me, like something I never thought about. And like the fact that, I mean, I would have never known that there's not really, I mean, you see shredded tires, but aside from being able to use shredded tires for different things, like what do you do with them
and stuff? I've seen.
Yeah,
that.
Right. And so it's really cool that he's coming up with a way to turn it into different commodities. And the fact that the thing's self-sustaining, like runs on the product that it creates from the tires, like that's pretty neat. So definitely some wizardry going on there.
There is. That's kind of what's always going on here. There's a lot behind Hot Shot Secret. Hot Shot Secret is, and we do a lot of private labeling and custom blending and formulation and bottling. And A lot of people don't know there's only a few oil manufacturers in America. Everything's coming out of a few buildings. So we make a lot of those products. What Hot Shots is just the pinnacle of anything we make. So when the lab comes up with something really good that no one can touch, it becomes a Hot Shots product.
Yeah.
Anything short of that is probably another product out there. It's just something we're making for somebody else.
Yeah. Well, and I've asked you about different products, product ideas, things that we could use, whatever. And I know a couple of times your answer to me was, well, we can make that product, but we haven't found out a way to make it better than what everybody else is doing it. So why do it? So literally every product that you guys are marketing, you have proven that it's the best way of doing it. Right. And that's kind of your motto about going about a lot of your product development.
Perfect example of that. And if there's something better out there, Chris will say, okay, well, we'll get better. We'll learn. I think our Stiction Eliminator, our original product, is on its 5th major formula change in 20 years. It's like, we're not scared to make a product better. New technology comes around. But a perfect example of that is our gasoline extreme. I know you're a diesel guy. Well, you're not. You got a gas car. I've seen you.
Well,
but I want to out you. But forever we were asked to come out with a gasoline fuel additive, and Chris just wouldn't do it. We try. We have stuff in the lab, but he really respected Chevron Techron. Great product. He's like, they really formulated a good product. It works well. I got no reason to make a product. We never want to get into a commodity style battle with anything. That's just not. We'll leave the big boys to battle that out. We always stay focused on a problem specific solution, a product for that, or something that we can show a high performance gain over anything else. So what happened with the gasoline thing was, for years and years we were asked for it, and Chris just said, until they can beat Techron, we're not moving. And then we accidentally found a very unique cleansing chemical, which I should always say is, in the lubricant world, there's new technology all the time. We try to stay at the front of the technology and test all the new stuff that comes out. And a lot of people look at the lubricant world as old technology, and they're using old technology. And I'll ask them, like, why are you using that lubricant? They're like, oh, my daddy used it. My daddy's daddy used that. I'm like, well, are you using your daddy's turbos and injectors? Oh, no, they got new stuff now. And I'm like, duh. Well, so do we in the lubricant world, So that's what happened on the gas side. We came across a brand new chemical that did an amazing job cleaning. And so Chris said, run with it. And these guys kick butt here in the lab and put out, we got our gasoline extreme product out now. That's killing it's doing very well. And it's far and away cleans better than any gasoline engine side cleaner, fuel cleaner on the market. But it just came out 2 years ago after being in business 23 years, because there was no reason to put one out unless it was the best. So that's just kind of how we formulate here. Until we got something that we can put out that's better, we'll just let somebody else have that business.
Yep. Very good. Yeah. That might be something that a lot of people don't know, is you guys do have quite a few products for the gasoline market as well. I know you guys have your Euro oils, and I know for my high mileage, lovely little gas car you were talking about, I had some concerns with when I bought the car, it had been sitting for a long time, and it has high miles as well. So we hit it up with some gasoline extreme, and the shift restore seemed to definitely do its trick as well. I had a couple of times where it would do, I don't know what it was doing, other than it was just, like harsh shifts, especially like kind of in a transition from decel back to accelerating. And since I put the shift restore back in, like, I haven't had it do that. So
good.
People might think some of this
back
added
to me on that. So I'm glad that it worked out for you.
Yeah. So, and the synthetic oil, like, there's definitely lots of good products, even if you don't have a cool diesel truck.
Yeah. It's kind of a good and bad thing. Like with us, we're often thought of as a diesel company, and even like Stiction Eliminator. Stiction Eliminator is the world's greatest oil side cleaning product for any engine.
Mhm.
But it's often thought of I still to this day have Cummins guys all the time. Like, oh, I don't need, I got a Cummins. I'm like, but everyone thinks it's just a 6.0 product. So then to get the world to understand it's more than just a 6.0 product, they finally like, okay, it's just a diesel product. I'm like, no,
Yep.
it's an engine product, So
Right.
on the oil side of things, the engine really doesn't care what kind of fuel it's drinking,
Mhm.
So on the oil products, they're gas or diesel. It's
Yeah.
only on the fuel side you got to be, specific to
Mhm.
the type of fuel treatment you're using. But yeah,
Yeah.
we got stuff for everything, and then we got more stuff coming out. We got a marine line coming soon. Been doing a lot of work on motorcycle stuff that we probably have a motorcycle line out next year, I'm guessing.
Okay. Yeah.
We just put our RV line out this past year.
Mhm.
So really what we try to do when we look at these different lines are, is there something like we'll take like a product like our fuel additive per se, like our everyday diesel treatment. You got a diesel RV. So are our diesel fuel additives good for it? Absolutely. The ones off the
Mhm.
shelf you're used to buying, sure, they work completely fine.
Right.
But if you go ask one of our chemists in the lab and say, hey, can they use EDT in a diesel RV? They'll say, yeah. But if you ask them, would you formulate it different if you knew it was an RV? They go,
Right.
huh. Well, you know
Yeah.
what? We'd add a little more stabilizer because
Mhm.
RVs tend to go and sit a little bit longer. We'd probably add a little more water dispersant because they see change of seasons a lot and stuff. So we're not reinventing the wheel with these different markets. We're just dialing the product in better for that specific use.
Mhm.
And that's what we're going to continue to do for motorcycle and marine and the rest of the lineup
Right.
is actually take the application with the application in mind, let the scientists formulate for how
Mhm.
that engine will be used, not just what kind of engine it is.
Yep. No, that's pretty cool that you can specialize in a lot of different areas. I mean, all engines have oil and they all make heat, so you're going to have that stiction buildup or whatever. But there's definitely a lot of different ways that they do it, whether it's a long term, high mile engine, or whether it's the crazy abuse that our race engines take. So,
Which they take a lot of abuse.
yeah. Well, we'll maybe get into talking a little bit more about some of the fun UCC stuff and everything. Talking about abuse, I guess. Talk a little bit about Ziegler's dyno pole and just
Nuts.
the fun we had there. And
That
yeah.
was crazy. That was absolutely crazy. I know everyone's talked about it, but I'm still not over that.
Yeah.
That we always talk about dynos being. Levon spoke to it really well. It's a snapshot in time. It's not the ultimate test. It's not
Mhm.
a true representation on how much power something can potentially make and all that.
Mhm.
But generally speaking, you see the dyno's going to give up what the dyno's going to give up that particular day in that
Right.
particular climate and atmosphere and et cetera.
Mhm.
So knowing that we had quite a few guys that were potentially shooting for 3,000 this year, with the first couple kind of coming in around the 2,500 mark, I really kind of felt like, maybe
Yeah.
that's just
That's
the
just
heat of
all
the
it's going to
day.
get. Yeah.
Yeah, we're not going to. So, I mean, these are all guys that we know have the potential of hitting
Mhm.
3,000. So it's like, yeah, if Justin hits 2,600, great. He's the best
Right.
out of those for this day, But
Mhm. Well, and
3,300, are you
that's
kidding me?
yeah,
That was
yeah.
crazy. Like,
That was pretty awesome. I mean, I can't say that I was well, no, I wasn't expecting that. I
well, that's the
thought we
first question I asked all you guys. I looked right
yeah.
at you. I was like, did you know? Did you know? And
Yeah.
Levon's kind of like,
Well, I mean, we all stood around and looked at each other after that dyno hit that we did at our shop, and we all said to each other, we're like, that made more than 3,000 horsepower. I
sure.
guarantee it. Our dyno only read 2,200.
Right.
So we knew it didn't make that number on the dyno, but that kind of proved our whole point of we're like, I mean, granted, it's all just a talking thing. You have no way of really proving it, but the noises that thing made was just different. And
Yeah,
you heard it that day. Like it was just different. But I mean, coming back to the whole dyno thing, it's a game we choose to play. It's just like going to the drag strip. Like I can make 3,000 horsepower on the drag strip, but if I can't figure out how to get it applied to the track, then that horsepower does me no good. The dyno is the exact same way. If I don't know how to properly apply my power to the chassis dyno, I can make all the horsepower I want and it doesn't matter.
Right.
And then the other analogy I would use there is if we went drag racing once a year and it would expect to learn a lot in a short amount of time, we wouldn't get much of anywhere. But in essence, that's what we're doing with this dyno. Like we get to play on this dyno one time a year. We get to play on other dynos, but that dyno, I mean, every dyno is different.
Right.
And that one, especially, like it has more load, it has a bigger roller than most. And it's just a little bit of a different game. So we took our chances with a few things. And I think like the little bit of testing we did here at the shop with that radial tire, like I really feel like that was the biggest game changer, because the biggest balance that we always fight is bringing power in quick enough that we don't run outside of our test window with our short RPM sweep that we have to deal with. But yet not bringing it in so quick that we, either nitrous backfire the engine or lose traction. So I think that was a pretty big game changer in that. And I'm going to say we're going to see a few sets of radials on the dyno next year, probably.
I think so. Yeah, just something there. Yep.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you that radial, darn near, I saw a new camera angle. Darn near touched that dyno.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Really?
I don't know how you didn't. I don't know what would have happened if it would have, but
yeah,
I don't want to know. But that was darn close.
Well, it touched our dyno. Like we have rub marks on it.
Oh, yeah.
Like it was 3 inches onto our platform, and I mean it stayed on there. So I think,
didn't Levon say he pulled like over a G, right? On the UCC dyno?
I think he pulled half a G on acceleration, and then I think it was like 1.5 negative G's when he let off. So like, this is supposed
while you're strapped down.
This is strapped down and stationary, and we're pulling G's here. So I mean it definitely moved. But yeah, that was really cool to watch. So what was were you up close to the dyno during the run?
Yeah, I was filming right from the side.
Yeah. I actually we had just gotten done dragging Larson back from a pass, and we heard Justin was up, and we pretty much just like dropped everything and ran as soon as we parked the truck. And I didn't think I'd have time to make it over to the dyno. So I ended up kind of in the spectator area at the end of the grandstand. So it's kind of far away from it. And like, I kind of wish I was right there when it happened, but yet the viewpoint from back there was pretty cool too, because
I was going to say, I don't know, it
was really neat because you heard it make the run, and like you could hear the noises it made, and you heard the initial cheer because everybody knew it was good when it happened.
Right. And then the clock would hit.
And then you heard another cheer, and you knew it was good, but you were just waiting. Like I couldn't see it. So we were just waiting for that announcement. And when they announced that number, I may have jumped and yelled loud enough for Drew to turn around and yell at me. I can't hear anything. But and then we sat there and we're arguing if we actually heard the number right or not.
Right. I couldn't believe it when I saw it. I had to look at it like a couple times, like and especially since it was 333. I think it was 336 or something.
Yep.
But I was like, I think he just broke the dyno. Like I thought he just
right.
And it just started going 3, 3, 3, 2. And I was like, no, that's a real number. Like, holy crap.
Yeah. So yeah.
But I'll tell you, you talk about, were you saying torture test? That was the best test we've ever had on our oil. And I'll tell you why. It's because I knew a little bit going in, just because I was in your pit and I heard you guys changing out, I think some of the meth kits for nitrous. And
yeah, we turned the water kit into another nitrous kit. So
yeah,
I mean, in essence, it's already a nitrous kit. You just need to take the water out of it and add nitrous.
Sure.
So we did.
And then when I
did up some of the orifice sizes. So
yeah, and we've seen you drill out a few jets in your day, Lynn.
We have a time or two.
But yeah, when I heard the moon tune was coming, I was like, okay, this is going to be pretty epic. It's either, going to be an epic explosion,
right,
or a big number, maybe both. I don't know.
Right.
but generally, anytime we see anything like that, and certainly we've never seen anything like that, I was expecting it to at least hurt the engine,
Yeah, right.
And I'll tell you, there's something I personally cherish, and I told the 1320 video guys I love them like 40 times, and because right when Justin got out of the car, I was back around the driver's side at that point.
That
and
black and white picture. Yeah.
And I noticed in your video, it's funny too, because I showed him Kyle and the guys at 1320, and and I finally got the image, so I'm going to make a big thing out of it. But I was watching the Firepunk video of it, and you guys actually have a video of me like that moment, and I see the 1320 guy like pop out around the side of the car, catch the picture. So I actually have the picture of the picture of the picture being taken. I'm sending to those guys.
I like
it.
But
what I was laughing about in that picture that I cherish is Justin leaned down and he said, he's like, and I didn't even change the oil all weekend long. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's the greatest adrenaline racing oil commercial I can ever imagine, now. And I was like, man, I wish I had that on tape. Now, here's the funny thing. I was so I was like a kid in a candy store when that happened.
Mm-hmm.
I was filming at the time. Well, I didn't turn my camera off.
Okay.
So when I went over to give him love, I thought my camera was off, but it wasn't pointed up. But so the audio was still running.
So you've got the audio.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So when I was watching the replay, I was like, I'm going to get that on tape.
Uh-huh.
So the good news is I did get it on tape. The bad news is I remembered it incorrectly.
Okay.
He didn't say I didn't change the oil all weekend. He said I didn't change the effing oil all effing weekend. I'm like, no, I don't think I can use it. So I'll play it for you guys in house, but I don't think it's going to make a Hot Shots commercial.
Yeah, it probably won't work so well as a commercial.
Right.
Oh man.
I got a question for you though regarding the dyno with all your guys' dyno experience.
Mm-hmm.
Short of a hub dyno or something like that. Yeah. Did you see those tie downs stretch like that? I mean, how do we go forward now? I mean, can we chain these things down? Like, what do you do?
Well, I mean, yeah, Cody was actually talking, like Cody from the dyno, Cody Pulliam. He was saying that they'll probably add some more tie downs to the dyno. And then, I think there's going to be chains that get involved. I do, however, think with a chain, we can't chain it tight. We need to let the thing move some. That's been the experience on our dyno, is you have to let that thing roll up into the rollers. And especially with the way the big roller is like that, like you have to be able to let that thing come around to the front side a little bit to where you're really pulling the tire back into the roller rather than it just sitting on top of it. Because sitting on top of it, you're going to spin a lot quicker. So the chain might be a little bit of a learning curve if they do go that route, as far as, how much slack do you need to give it or can you give it? And it still do good. So maybe you put the chain there more as insurance and let those straps kind of do their thing.
They certainly stretch those straps, I'll tell you. That was crazy.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy to watch those things bounce when he let off, because they definitely had a lot of slack in them. But I was glad to see that it put up a big number instead of carnage, because you never really for sure know how it's going to work out. Because, I mean, you're trying to bring that nitrous in so quick, and you just really have no way of knowing exactly what the perfect time is to do it. And you bring too much of it in too quick, it's going to create a problem. So,
I don't know. I think you guys crossed the threshold of too much too quick. I mean, was it 6 pounds in like 1.1 second or something?
Yeah, it was 5.9.
Can you get any faster or any more than that?
No. I mean, I guess it's just all in how you start it. And, you've got to be able to make sure that as you bring more in, the engine's actually accelerating, and you're not just going to, put too much in for the amount of boost that you have and everything. So, but you start, making some dyno sweeps and realizing the time you have to work with. And like Levon said, after looking at the log when we were on our dyno, he discovered that the big kits of nitrous didn't even come on till we were past the RPM sweep. So we were out of the test window before the big kits of nitrous even came on. So it probably did make the power that we think it did, but it was already past its test window.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, certainly the the highlight of UCC for me, obviously. I was also really proud of Hot Shots sponsored guys. We swept the top 3 podium. You know,
Nice.
we support, uh, Dirty Hooker. They put in I mean, again, all 3 great legs
Right.
of all of them. Derek Rose. I mean, just it was really cool to see those guys finish so well and
Right.
represent us well. So we appreciate their support and everything. And
Yeah.
I personally kind of always love it. Like I always say, we're the small guy in a big world of giant lubricant companies, you know. So
so you're saying the Hot Shot secret swept the podium at the Lucas Oil Indianapolis Raceway at the what was it, the AMSOIL UCC?
Just saying, man. Just saying. For maybe like the 5th year in a row, but just saying, you know.
No, that's
but no,
good
I
stuff,
mean
man.
it was cool. And thanks to you guys too, Firepunk, and for bringing the Outlaw series in. And I'll be honest, I so wanted to have an outlaw race in Ohio. And years ago when we first talked about this, we both talked about teaming up and bringing one into Ohio, and then you guys finally stepped up and had the first year here, and then things kind of migrated over.
Right.
I was like, I hope it comes back, and now I kind of don't. I'm kind of like, it really helps UCC so much to have that there that I can't imagine UCC without it now.
Well, and I think, I mean, the two just complement each other so well, because when we first talked about doing a race in Ohio, like we wanted to have the Super Bowl of racing. I mean, we want to make this a big deal. We wanted a big spectator thing. We want everybody in the diesel industry to be there. And then when we, stepped back in that COVID year, and then we started looking at the dates and how close UCC was to our races, and how you're not going to get people coming from Florida and Texas 2 weeks apart to make those races. And it just kind of made sense. And then this year you kind of had that feel like there's just everything going on. You've got the vendors. Shoot, I heard over between 300 and 400 trucks in show and shine. So like you've got a whole,
I didn't even go over there. I could not believe when I was watching your video, how many trucks there were of that.
I mean,
that had to be a record, right?
Oh, I would think so. I mean, for a diesel,
ODS had a record tech card too. So, I mean,
right. So, I mean, I just think it works together very well, because you have everybody in the industry there, and it just, I kind of feel like the last thing that we need to do yet to really make this like a diesel Super Bowl is to bring a big polling event in. You don't really have the polling crowd there. And if any place can actually host all of those different groups at the same time, I think Indy is probably the place that you can do that. So always talking about how to make things different and better. And I know this year there was some frustration with the main event and the way some of the scoring is and the participation and some of that stuff. But I'm
still torn on the whole one truck thing. Like I really do like the one truck thing, but it worked, and
I fully agree with you from a spectator standpoint. The two truck thing, and even almost from a competitor standpoint, like it felt like after the dyno Saturday, it was like, okay, let's go into Sunday, and as long as nobody screws up, then we know who's going to win. So it was almost like it was an afterthought. You stood there and you were watching polling. You weren't quite sure always who was polling for who. And that was a little
the byproduct of that also is that it allowed those guys to go balls out on Saturday too, and really turn up on the track. So that's spectator friendly too. So there's benefits on both sides of it.
Here's my pitch to the whole thing. Like, I think it needs to be we're going to go back. We're going to make it a 2-event thing. So we're going to have a street truck challenge, and I would like to see it be more geared towards like a diesel power challenge, or a, what I call
all
it,
truck.
king of the all truck challenge. That's that style of thing where you have to have a steel body truck. It has to be a streetable truck. I think the trailer obstacle course that they did at Diesel Power Challenge, that needs to come back into play, because that's a really big driver skill kind of thing. And if we're talking street truck, you need that kind of thing. So that's where I think that is a lot more attainable for a lot more shops in the US. There's a lot of people that can build a 1,500 horsepower to 2,000 horsepower street truck Swiss Army knife. There's a lot of people that can fit into that. And I think you could have a field of 20 to 30 trucks of that pretty easily. And then alongside that, I think there needs to be, I guess I would call it a manufacturer's challenge, I guess.
Yeah, I
So
saw
like,
you that idea you had. I like that.
yeah, like the way I see it is, you would have Fleece and D&J and Wagler and Hamilton and Industrial and Scheid, like anybody like that wants to throw their hat in the ring. You can bring as many as 3 vehicles if you want. Like if you want to bring a different vehicle for every event, be my guest. But if we're team D&J, you're running D&J engines in all of your platforms. So D&J might not even own any of the engines, but it might be their top 3 customers.
Right.
And then the last part of tying that all together is I feel like all of the vehicles would need to be branded properly. Like I don't think they necessarily have to color match, but if it's a team D&J, it needs to say
have a
team
scheme,
D&J.
something.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
It needs to be at least have a half wrap or something on it to where everybody knows that, hey, this is team D&J, this is team Fleece. So with doing that, now you can tie in a lot of these guys that are already out there. Derek Rose, he can come on team Fleece, and I mean, you name it. Ben Francis, I think would, come with team Hamilton or whatever. So
Right.
there'd be a lot of opportunity for putting teams together that way. And maybe you even make that like a 10 team invitational. Like this is limited to 10 and I don't know. I don't think that should be it shouldn't be 20 or 30 trucks. Like it should be the elite. And then if you fall in the bottom 3, you don't get an invite the next year and somebody else gets a chance, and you kind of, rotate in and out that way or whatever. But that's kind of my vision. I don't know. And the other thing that would allow would, if they wanted to move the sled pull to Saturday night, if you had always different vehicles, you could actually make that the same day. You could do dyno and sled pull on the same day, where you're not having to give them the time to convert a truck over and all that stuff. So I don't know, just my idea.
No, I like that a lot. I saw you say that, and
yeah,
I will say, well, the suggestion I threw out there was more from the spectator side, and I kind of believe this with everything we do, is making the pits more accessible to the spectators. I think that's what creates memories, and I'm in your guys' pits all the time, and you guys are so good with fans and kids that come up and let them sit in the truck, or just the guy who's so interested, that I always sit there and I see a guy like standing like 30 feet away, just kind of like, and it's like, come on over, and
right.
And you guys are so good, and literally everybody in Outlaw is awesome about it. I mean, I couldn't ask for more out of the drivers and everything. I think we as sponsors, we as show promoters, these event organizers, we need to do a better job of guiding people to the pits. And don't get me wrong, you hear it said all the time, hey, feel free to stop by the pits, say hi to these guys, they're friendly, but we just kind of say it and move on. I think, and I do think some of the guys could do a better job in their pits of like, be proud of who you are, be proud of your shop, like display it better. Like, call me if you're one of my Hot Shots guys. Call me. I will make banners for you guys that are just your shop, just to make it a little more clear. My idea for UCC, because it uniquely has a small field of competitors, and who they are ahead of time, and how good of a job UCC already does with like signage and layout. I think that those driver pits for the UCC pits should almost be like front and center. They should be given to the driver, so every one of them gets one of those canopy tents or something. But just line them up in order, numbered with big signage on each one of them. Competitor 1 with like a bio, and that should be on like the program map, not just like the, where the vendors are in the bathrooms. And this is like, no, like I want to see where Derek Rose's pit is. I want to see I came here to see Josh McCormick. Where's he at? Like, I found that I know everybody. Yeah. And when I first got there, I had to drive around a couple times to identify where people's pits were, and if that's me and I know everybody, like that 10-year-old kid that was his first time there makes it a little tough. So I think we could do a better job of that, because you drivers are already kicking butt at receiving those fans, so we just need to connect those dots a little bit better.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, that definitely would be really cool if you could have all the trucks, in a nice little row. And I know some of like, I know how many trailers we drug to the track when we did UCC, and the space that it takes. So some of that makes that a little bit difficult, but I also kind of think like you could have a front row where all the trucks are and the main working gets done. And then the back row is where you put all your support vehicles and stuff, where
Sure.
you could maybe lay that out a little bit different. But yeah, I mean, I know the guys at UCC are always looking at ways of improving it. And, there's been a lot of chatter this year with the way that, the whole 2-truck thing created a lot of chatter. So good and bad, I guess. So but definitely, I'm sure they'll come up with something, but it's really cool to see it grow, and yeah, all the fun we had. So,
Oh, I forgot the greatest part of the whole weekend.
What's that?
Charlie.
Yep. All the
Oh
good food.
gosh.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was the greatest surprise I had. Like,
Yeah.
I saw him there. I was like, oh, it's over. This weekend's gonna be perfect.
Yeah,
Shout
it's
out
always
to Charlie, man.
yeah, it's always good to be done with a long day of racing and know you've got good food back at the pits. And
Very.
I mean,
very
I've
good
said it
stuff.
many a times that we have tons of fun with having people in our pits and eating food and just, fellowshipping with each other. And so friends and having a good time is as much a part of racing as the racing itself. So
Yep, absolutely.
that's always a lot of fun. But we definitely had crowds come through there for Charlie's famous food.
Yep. We fed a lot of people that weekend.
Yeah,
sure.
we did. Yeah. Well, I shouldn't say we. Charlie did.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
I do got a question for you.
Yeah.
I've heard Levon talk about a Lamborghini for so many years now.
Mm-hmm.
Now that he gets to whip one around there and he's got a lot more seat time, when's he buying one?
Well, I think the real answer to that question is probably, when is Kelly getting a pool? Because I think that's about the time he'd have the blessing to buy one. Yeah.
Is he still talking about diesel swapping a cheap Lambo?
I think he's
Is he over that?
I haven't heard him talk about that much recently. So
All right.
yeah, I don't know that
He was on that kick for a while. Like,
yeah. Well, we've looked at it pretty long and hard, and just the space limitations of, I'm not saying it can't be done, because I'm sure if you decide to, you can do it. But the way the whole transaxle and everything is, like, I just don't know how it would all work. I see actually owning a Lamborghini being a lot higher probability of happening than what,
Right.
doing a swap on one. But that was pretty cool having James Weaver's Lamborghini there for the weekend. Definitely got a lot of attention, and everybody.
Great color
Yeah,
too.
right.
I like that.
Matches that color behind your head pretty good, doesn't it?
It's a good one.
Yeah, it definitely got a lot of attention, and a lot of rides were given, and people had a lot of fun with it. But
I won some money against it on the quad.
did you really?
Cab.
Yeah. That was all rigged. Levon, purposely sucked at driving it so that, no, I'm just kidding. But he did say it's kind of like almost like slow reacting coming off the line. I think it might have spun tires a little, but it was still fun just so people really understand, how fast that some of these big diesel trucks are. Putting it up beside a car like that puts it into perspective a little bit on straight line speed. But I mean, those cars, there's so much more to those cars than just straight line speed. It's the look and the sound and the feel of everything, and the way they handle. And I mean, I'm sure the quad cab would never keep up with it on a curvy road, but
no. No. It's fun to watch in a straight line, though.
Yeah, it really is. It's a good time. So yeah, what were some of the other I don't know, vehicle highlights? I guess ODR specific competitors. What was some of the stuff that stuck out to you there?
Well, let's see. I think we saw the 6.0 record go back.
Yeah, I mean, that got dropped at least 3 or 4 times. Like Danny and Charlie Fish kept going back and forth.
That's awesome. Always like seeing that battle. That's a good one.
We got a nice flying nitrous bottle in the process. I don't know, were you up at the track when that happened?
Crazy. That could have been bad. Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw that. I was like, what's dancing on the track? I was
Yeah.
like, oh, that's a nitrous bottle.
Yeah, it's a good thing that thing stayed between the walls of the racetrack and
Yeah.
didn't go anywhere else. But yeah, that was. And
Yeah,
he
what
still.
else we see? We saw, another good news that I always like seeing is more dragsters.
Yeah.
And I didn't even realize that was Paul Vasco, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because literally a couple weeks before Milliken messaged me, or maybe Paul messaged me, I want to get some oil, which I've sponsored him on his car before.
Okay.
I had no idea it was for a dragster.
Okay.
And then when he showed up, I was like, I don't even know who that is. Who's got the new dragster here?
Uh-huh.
And all of a sudden
Gotcha.
I put 2 and 2 together. I'm like,
Right.
So always good seeing another dragster.
Yeah.
It's fun to.
Mhm.
I know it's good for those guys
Mhm.
to have. I mean, come on. Shide has been solo running for so long. Anytime
Right.
they get anybody to line up against, it's great. So
Mhm.
now the Holly Rock's kind of,
Yeah.
coming back out,
Yeah.
and I hope we get to see some more dragster action.
No,
That's
that
good for
would
the-
be cool. I mean, definitely seeing Holly Rock back out there was good, and hopefully they can, keep making progress. Like, I think that car has a good bit of potential in it. And then,
What about that dragster you guys have over there in Plain City?
well,
What's going on?
I hope that thing gets going here. I feel like this season is out of the equation at this point, but I mean, definitely still have plans for it, and would like. I mean, it needs to get on the chassis table. We need to get the chassis work done on it, and waiting for the power plant. So things, I think, seem to be lining up to where we might have a power plant for it by September or so, and so that gives us kind of a goal on getting chassis work done on it. So if we can have the chassis ready by the time the engine gets here, hopefully by next spring we'll be ready to be running with that. So I mean, that
no
would.
chance of any late season debut.
I would be amazed at this point. I mean, I feel like some of those elements are out of our control. I'm
You got
not
some
sure.
other things cooking.
Yeah,
Right.
a couple things. But then
Well,
I also heard.
Speaking of debut, that's another UCC memory of the weekend too. Was what a hell of a debut for Johnny Gilbert and Stainless Diesel in the new car. And
Mhm.
man, coming out, I thought he was, get some shakedown passes,
Right.
and he ends up winning Pro Mod. And
Yeah.
and if I'm not mistaken, that final with the
Mhm.
S10. Well, first of all, it was like Larson's first red light, I believe,
Yeah.
in the S10.
That's what I
All
was
right.
told. Yeah, the first one in competition. I think he had maybe done it in qualifying before, but I'm pretty sure it was the first in competition.
Well, I remember the S10 the first year in Hot Shots dress. I had to tell you guys that the S10 had not lost all year.
Yeah.
And you guys didn't even know that. And you're like, no, that can't be. And you went back and I was like, no, really? Because the only time I thought it lost was a red light, but it was
Mhm.
actually it was a red that went the other way. It was a final down in Rossville, I believe.
Rocky
And we all
Top.
thought
We thought we had.
Shaddy had.
Yep, we were against
Yeah.
Shaddy. Shaddy thought he had won. We all thought he had won. Nobody saw the red light, and
Right.
he had actually driven back up for winners pictures. And I was on the return road with the S10. Actually, it was when we went to the ticket booth. We
Yep.
looked at the ticket and we were like, "What do you know?" And it was funny because Lane, my son, was on the golf cart, and he's like, "Dad, he red lit. We won." I'm like, "No, he didn't." Like, I blew it off. And then we get back to the ticket booth and we get the ticket and we're like, well, would you look at that? So
Yeah, I remember that clear. I had thought that Larson had red lit on that.
Mhm.
And so thinking back after that whole year they didn't lose a competition pass, the S10.
Mhm.
And then coming into the finale of the S10 here at ODR, with the last run being a red light, like I really remember going, man, I swear I don't think I've ever seen a red light ever. And I heard you guys say that. So, and then
Yeah.
Johnny at the same time, didn't he cut like a 000?
Yeah, he did. He had a perfect light on that last pass. So, I mean, as much as I
those guys
did,
are going at it.
yeah, as much as I didn't want to lose that last pass, it was kind of fitting for it being his first weekend, and it was almost like passing the torch, I guess,
Yeah.
with the S10 being retired that weekend. So it was a little bittersweet, but I think there was
it certainly was.
maybe a couple of onions cut that evening. I'm not
Hey,
sure.
look, man, I'll tell you what, there were definitely some onions in my vicinity because I was taking it like a man, and I was really happy, and it was nostalgic and all that. I'm gonna blame it on Ro because I went over because I saw Ro was a little pouty, and I went over and gave Ro a hug, and she like kind of started to melt, and I'm like, I gotta leave, I gotta leave, I gotta leave. Like, there's onions around here, so.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
man, it's been such a good run with the S10. You know, it's first time. Like again, you guys dragged us into this whole motorsports mess, and we're so happy because Hot Shots has done so well for the company and everything. And then the first time we've ever fully title sponsored one vehicle like that, and so
Right.
that truck's done a lot for our company. You know, so we got I got a lot of emotions tied into that thing. So it was kind of sad to see it go, but also knowing what's coming and everything. And the fact that you guys decided to go with a Duster because I'm a big Mopar guy. I mean, thank you very much for letting me choose exactly what type of body we're going with. But yeah, I'm excited about what's coming.
If you want to think that you picked it, that's fine.
It
makes you feel better.
We've accepted that. You remember years ago, you were the first one to show me.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I remember.
You remember that it was like I think it was a pink one. That he had on his phone. I think it was a Reese Brothers build, and I was just like done. Like, what is that? Like, I've seen the Challenger a million times, and this is a Mopar guy, I like it and everything.
Right.
But the first time I saw that Duster, I was like, that is the most beautiful pro mod I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And now years later to know that's coming.
Yeah.
And I got to choose it. Wow.
Right.
I'm such an honor. I appreciate it.
No, we're looking forward to the new platform. And I think, we were pretty dead set on doing something Mopar because it just made sense. Like, if it's a Mopar engine, we got to at least have some kind of connection there, I guess. And we're kind of Mopar guys, I guess, from the truck side of things. But, and it just, I don't know, it's different. We were pretty determined to not have the same pro mod body that everybody else has. So it might not be quite as aerodynamic as a new Corvette or Camaro, but it'll have a little bit of flavor to it. So we just need to figure out all the details for it now. And I think some of the new, look isn't fully decided yet, but we're at least got the ball rolling on moving that direction. So should be a lot of fun.
And you know what? I'm excited to watch you guys do what you do. As a teammate, partner, industry, Hot Shots relationship thing, it's cool and all. As just a fan of drag racing in general and watching what you guys do, I'm kind of looking forward to you guys struggling again. Like, I know you're not. Like, I hope we just figured out like the first week kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it's so impressive to see with the S10 where you took it and just, pushing the envelope out into this blue ocean nobody's been before, and having to figure things out as you go and taking that truck as far as I think anybody could possibly have taken that.
Right.
And now you got it's not like you're going to be able to pick up right on the back end of that.
Yeah.
And just keep moving forward. So
right.
It'd only be fair if you earn it. And I think you guys, if anybody earns it, you guys do. And so it's going to be fun to get in this new build and see what you guys do with it. And the journey from sitting in it the first time to wherever it takes you, it's going to be cool to watch.
Yeah. No, I definitely, we've got a number of different goals with the new car, but it is going to take some time to figure it out because we're changing a number of things, especially, new chassis is going to take something to get used to, and trying the 5-speed transmission, that's going to be a big learning curve for us. Like ultimately on paper, it seems like it should be the thing that should help us, get to that next level. But it's all going to be a lot of things to figure out. And that's why we felt like it was a good idea to get Reese Brothers in our corner. It's that much more knowledge that we have on the team. And like you look at that picture, that family picture we took Saturday night with the S10, I was looking at that the other day, and it just made me realize like literally how many people have their fingers in that truck. And I don't even think quite everybody, there's definitely people that have contributed to that truck that weren't in that picture either.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's more than that, just that picture too.
Right.
Yep.
And there's quite a crowd in there. So
yep. It takes a village.
We know the flag, it flies, and we ultimately are responsible for making it going down the track, but there's a ton of people that contribute to things like that happening. And I the other thing that's really cool about the diesel community right now is, like, on the track, we all want to beat each other quite a bit, but there's been quite a bit of data sharing that's going
Mhm.
on between the different teams, and just, things that we learn, we're sharing it with each other. And I think that's really helping us all make strides forward. So that's been pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And in the gaps that the diesel industry's covered in just the last couple of years has been insane. I do a lot of interviews and stuff with like PRI and these
Mhm,
race engine magazines, these different types of things that want to talk about diesel motorsports to us. And
mhm,
it always I'm always shocked at what these guys don't know what's going on right now in diesel
mhm.
motorsports. They're like, wait, they're going how fast and they're doing what?
Right, right.
And
Well, and that's the
impressive to see,
main.
like, the gas guys have already kind of, they've pushed it really far. So now, and that technology's still growing and they're still figuring it out.
Yeah.
But they're moving it incrementally,
Mhm,
and just the leaps that the diesel's made in the last few years is
mhm,
awesome. As more people catch on to that, I think we're getting more and more eyeballs on it.
mhm.
And that's what we need. We obviously have a small, big family that inside this industry,
Right.
but to put butts in the seats and fill the stands and grow the
Mhm.
sport, I think we're well on the way of doing
Yeah.
that. And it's because of, like you said, these teams getting together. I think another thing that we found, forget just like the tuning side. I know you guys have been sharing a lot of data on that stuff too.
Mhm.
We found a lot of gains just from a lubricant side. We try to play we try to stay in our lane. I don't ever tell you how to, shut your, tune your truck or anything like that. But
Mhm.
getting some of these manufacturers together has helped us tremendously and stuff. So when you're working with, and regardless of that, there's good competitive companies out there. Like you just named a bunch of engine builders earlier, like they've all contributed to it, and then you go down your product lines, your exergies and your S and S's. It's like, you just pick your product. All these guys are contributing. And now when we have cross manufacturers, when I talk to the S and S guys, I learn stuff,
Mhm.
and then we can take that back. When I talk to Drew at D&J, it's like I learn stuff. And so I think the industry itself is very apt to helping each other. And it's the
Mhm.
result is all these gains that we've seen in the last few years. And I think we're going to just keep heading down that road.
Right. Right. Well, I mean, I know our goal for the new chassis is to make this thing mainstream pro mod. We
Right.
want to be able to go to PDRA or Midwest Pro Mod and make the field. Like,
Right. And
we
not be the,
know.
oh, it's cute. Look at the cute diesel out
Right. Look
there.
at the cute. Yeah. Right. And I know that's the same goal that some of the other guys have with their new pro mod builds. I think, we're probably still a year or two away from it, but I do think we can get there. And the other thing that I think, if we can get to that level and we can show everybody how many laps we can go without pulling a head off or taking pistons out, if we can make a car run
You're going to get more
370s.
converts.
Right, right. If we can make a car run 370s and go 50 laps without pulling an engine apart, there's going to be guys that are going to be starting ringing some diesel guys' phones and be like, "Hey, I want that."
You nailed it. You nailed it. I remember when we were down at, I don't know if it was Lights Out or No Mercy. I get them all mixed up. With the S10, it was right when we had the valve that like went to the moon.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and some guys, a lot of the other competitive racers came over. The gas guys came over to the pits and
Mm-hmm.
to congratulate you guys and check on it. And I remember them saying something about like, well, how often do you tear down or something? And you guys were like, well, we haven't. And they're like, what do you mean you haven't? Like, how many passes do you have? And I believe that year we had, I think it was 99 or 100 passes and
Right.
then 20 dyno pulls. So it was like 120 pulls.
Mm-hmm.
And they were just like, wait, what? Like,
Yeah. Right.
we tear down twice a week,
Mm-hmm.
like they have a backup engine and all
Right.
this stuff and the amount of thrashing they go through. And they're like,
Mm-hmm.
you can put down that much horsepower, get down the track that fast and keep the engine together all year long. Like,
Right.
mind blowing. And
Mm-hmm.
you're right. If you can enter that world with them and
Mm-hmm.
then rather than trying to drag more of our guys over that world, let's convert some of those guys to come to our side, and see how
Yeah.
many of those guys will start running diesel platforms.
Yeah. And I mean, it might be a little bit of a pipe dream at this point to think that that's going to happen a lot, but I do think it's something that's attainable. Like we've got some things to figure
Sure.
out. And I mean, let's be real. We've not, we've gone threes once and we've done that on
Right.
radial. So like, I mean, let's make
It was
three.
barely a 3.
Yeah. Let's make 390s a regular thing on big tires. And then let's,
Right.
let's work our way down from there. So I'm not
All right.
delusional
So
in
here's a
thinking that
question
we're
I
right
get
there,
though
but
sometimes about that. As you guys kind of enter this gas world a little bit more, like generally with the S10, we're doing, lights out and no mercy, beginning of the year, end of the year, slap a radio on and let's go swing for the fence and see what it can put down kind of thing. Obviously Ryan's doing more of he's running a series, like Milliken's, is putting a diesel application in that. So at what's the balance? Like at what point do you say, yes, I love my diesel industry I'm in. I'm going to continue to support it. I want to hit my outlaw diesel races, support the series, be a regular competitor there. But I also want to expand my horizon and what the diesel platform can do and take it against these PDRA guys and this other stuff and not leave diesel behind. Like, how do you do both and balance that? And like, what's the end game ultimate goal? Is like being fully on the gas side or like and leaving diesel behind, because that's going to be painful for diesel diehards, and that balance is tough.
Right. No, I agree. I mean, there's a lot of questions there. I'm not quite sure how that all looks like. I'm not going to worry about that too much until I know that we have a platform that we can actually competitive play in PDRA. Like, I don't feel like it's going to be very beneficial for us to go play with a 4.0 or a 410 car running PDRA or Midwest Pro Mod. So I'm trying to not worry too much about that at this point. But, if we do reach that point, like it probably depends a little bit how much of a dedicated race team you have, as to whether you can, like, I looked at the PDRA schedule versus the Outlaw Diesel Super Series schedule, and I actually don't think there's any conflicting dates this year. So if you were really that hardcore, you could still hit both of them, but you'd have to have pretty much a dedicated race team to be able to do that. So I don't foresee us going that hard anytime real soon, unless we can figure out a way to fund a full-time race team. But at this
Are you
point,
sponsorship pitching me, man?
well, I would never do that. I don't know what you're talking about.
Where's Chris?
So yeah, I mean, do you want every toter in PDRA to run some Hot Shot Secret and maybe hit up some Midwest Pro Mod? And
yeah, I like it.
Yeah. One other thing we might touch on real quick before we wrap it up. I know you guys do a ton of racer support and you go to a lot of different events and stuff. Tell me a little bit. I mean, you guys are some in the no prep world. I guess tell me how many different forms of motorsport, how many different races you go to in a year. What are some of your other big sponsors that you guys align with outside of the diesel racing world?
Good question. The truth of the matter is we really don't have a large motorsports budget. We do what we can with what we have. And what I found is, like I say, it's like I don't want to die by 1,000 cuts. And by that, I mean, putting a little bit of sponsorship in all these little tons of different things doesn't really move the overall needle very much. So I feel from a sponsorship side of thing, you pretty much got to go head first in, own it, and try to dominate that industry. That's what we've done with diesel drag racing. That was the first thing we got into, again, thanks to you guys pushing us down that road. And it's light years difference now than it was. I mean, we've only been doing this for 5 years. Like we were not even a motorsports company, have had a motorsports product 5 years ago. And when we first started, I just remember people not having a clue who we are and having explained that, over and over again. And, but good partnerships with good teams and being out there in the field, which I think has always been one of the things that we've tried to focus on, is being involved. As I told you earlier, it gives us really good R&D and feedback and product development and product testing and all that stuff. There's so many things that you can get out of these motorsports relationships that I don't think a lot of other companies think about. I think a lot of them, especially the ones that do have big budgets, ironically, they tend to just cut a check and put their name on top of things. And I'd love to, if I had the money to and all that stuff, that'd be great and all, but I would never want to pull back on being deeply involved.
Right. Yeah.
And the advantages we get out of that are priceless over whatever branding opportunity we get by having our name on something. So taking what we've done in diesel drag racing in 5 years, going from nobody to pretty much dominating that industry, we want to continue to replicate that, but I got to really take it one type of motorsports at a time. I'd say, as you mentioned, we have a good reach into no prep racing. I think a lot of the reason is that a lot of the big companies, particularly, I guess, lubricant companies that we compete with, kind of stayed away at first because of the tie to illegal street racing and, you know, some of the perception that industry has. I've always thought it's been just a different way of drag racing. It's such an interesting way to be a complete equalizer by, you know, taking the prep out of there to not the fast guy always wins. So it's just a different way of doing things. And I love this stuff. So we've gone pretty hard into that. We have some really great drivers out there that represent us that I love to death, that, you know, put a good name on us. And I put a good amount of sponsorship that direction. And then the pulling side of things, we finally started really getting into that. Obviously, it's a natural next step with our diesel performance stuff that we have. So we're a big sponsor of the NTPA. Matter of fact, that season's it kind of starts a little later, as you know. We're really about to start getting the NTPA season here, the pulling season here in the next month or so. And I'll be down at Chapel Hill in Tennessee later next month, I think. The big Bowling Green one here in Ohio is awesome. You know, the championship here. So pulling's a big one for us that we are putting a lot of investment behind, and we're starting to see a lot of great gains out of. And some of the biggest pullers are now coming over to us, which is a byproduct of our success in drag racing. You know, like, hey, we see what you're doing over there. What can you bring to the pulling side? So some of these really big name guys are approaching us rather than, you know, us waiting to just organically develop down the road. But what I will tell you is, and so I'd say those are our main things that I've really got a hold of right now. But there are a ton of these other motorsports out there that I know are perfectly made for our product, specifically due to a lot of the advantages that we have from the cooling side of things. These circle track guys worship us. They say our products are so good. I've got a bunch of kart racers that love our stuff. The small engine type of stuff really benefits from our cooling abilities. We've got a lot of desert 4x4 ATV style racing that we're huge in, and we didn't even know. Like some of these little markets, these people have found our products, and then they contact me and they say, "Hey, you know that like half my series is running your guys' racing wall, and I don't even know anything about the series or anything." So there's all these great opportunities. If I had more time and resources and everything, I'd love to be able to push all of them. I just, as we grow, we're trying to keep up with it all. So I've got my focus on our big stuff, and I thank all those guys out there in these other motorsports that are running our stuff. I'll get to you. I'm coming. You know, it's just you know, not enough hours in the day, and we'll just continue to grow and support where the products lead us. You know,
there's only so much that one Kyle Fischer can do, huh?
I know. I'm telling these guys, we need to, like, I don't need more of me. I have enough of me. But yeah, a bigger, robust help to send multiple teams out every weekend. I could use a weekend off now and then. I'll put it that way.
I hear you. Yeah. Well, hey, I think we're going to wrap it up today, and I appreciate everything that you personally do and you guys do for us. I think the personal connection and you guys being there to support racers at the events goes a long way. That makes a pretty big difference for us, I know. And yeah, it's been good chatting with you today. And like I said earlier, I'm sure we could ramble on for forever and ever, but at some point somebody might get bored. So, and
you know,
unfortunately,
let's
you
set
have
up I'll set up we'll do it again, but we'll have like the late night edition.
There you go.
With cocktails, and we'll see. We'll see how
what we can drum
PG we can keep it and lose out on that. So, but yeah, no, thanks to you too, man. It's a two-way street. Obviously, you know how much we love you guys over at Firepunk and what you guys have done for us, and I just can't wait to see what's next for all of us. And I appreciate the time on here, and anytime you want to chat, I'm here, buddy. You know it.
Yep. Unfortunately, you have a hot trailer to load, and I have work to do. So we'll call it a wrap for today, and that's going to do it for this week's episode of Firepunk Friday. And we'll see you guys next week.